Good evening, everybody. Alderwoman Haddon, starting our weekly town hall. Um, Putting in some of the links that I tend to refer to for people's reference today. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure to share what we've got going on our other social platforms. So hello to folks who are tuning in. Hope everyone's enjoying their Saturday. I've had a pretty good day so far. All right. Give me a moment here. All right. Hey, Maureen. Hey, David. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in for this week. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So week 7 of the stay-at-home order, week 8 of working from home during this pandemic for me personally. And like all the weeks before, it's been challenging. It's been tiring, and also have definitely been able to help a lot of people. And our team in the 49th Ward office are still kind of going round the clock, making sure that we're, oh, hi, Bob and Judy, but making sure that we're answering service requests, taking care of the ward, and increasingly trying to meet the expanded needs that our residents have during this very difficult time. So I'll say, normally in the newsletter, I give kind of a list of highlights of just kind of like all of the work and all of the things that we've been doing. This week, I shared a few kind of broader points, just to kind of catch people up on what everything that myself and my office have been doing in kind of a bigger picture term. So I want to share a little bit about that this evening. And so I'll start off with speaking about our Rogers Park Community Response Team. So a lot of folks in the neighborhood are familiar with the response team. Maybe you've called for resources. Maybe you're volunteering. Maybe you've volunteered and called for resources. Maybe you've donated. So the website I've put in the chat box, it's www.rpcrt.org. So the community response team, we started at the week of March 9th. Jim Jendersky came into my office. He'd been talking with a nurse, Monica Dillon, who works out of Loyola, about all the increasing needs that we suspected people were going to have if this pandemic really played out the way that it could. And we got my team involved, brought in Protect RP, United Church of Rogers Park, Just Harvest, Howard Area Community Center, Northside Community Resources. And by the end of the week, we had volunteers setting up a hotline, which you can find on the website there. We were doing recruiting for more volunteers to help deliver food, to help deliver meds and supplies to people who might not be able to leave their home. And over the last several weeks, we've grown. We're hundreds of volunteers strong. We've got volunteer coordinators, volunteer coordinators, volunteers managing the hotline. We've got people who've set up senior wellness calls. This is the second week and the first full one of the food access team delivering groceries to people's homes, boxes of groceries. We've grown quite a bit. We've got this website, which has all the updated resources, whether you're looking for information around unemployment benefits, housing support, public health information around COVID-19, coronavirus, and what you can do. Whether you're looking to donate or sign up to volunteer to figure out how you can help support your community, you can do it all through the Rogers Park Community Response Team website. We've got support for small businesses, and we keep it updated frequently. This week, we also launched the Facebook page and the Instagram just to keep more connected. And I'll say the big ask that I have of this week is that we've had volunteers really working multiple shifts a week over the last 6 weeks, basically. And we could use some more volunteers. So we want to be able to give people a bit of a break. We do specifically need some folks with bilingual language skills, particularly with Spanish. So while our hotline is supported in 4 languages now, we just need a few more people. And we're also going to do some pushes over the next week to get people to sign up for these virtual phone bank shifts so we can reach even more of our senior residents and people at home. So a thank you to everyone who has supported this effort, and a thank you to everyone who's called the hotline because you need something. Another volunteer opportunity, this might be up your alley. We have virtual companions. So we know that people are isolated. Our schedules have changed. Our lives have changed. The world has changed. And we have a volunteer role for people who are just comfortable and maybe chatting with folks on the phone. So if you like to talk and you like to check in on people and you want to help, this could be a volunteer role for you. One of the big highlights of this week, in addition to the food deliveries, and that was like 85 families last week were delivered food. That's in addition to the food service that A Just Harvest is doing, that the families at Howard Area Community Center is doing grocery delivery for, and the food service that United Church of Rogers Park is doing. So we've got just people pulling together all over the ward to make sure that residents in our community and beyond are taken care of. So big thing that I'm really proud of our community, and that we've been able to create and support and sustain something like this, and invite you all to get involved. Second big piece. So every week, we've also been pulling together our community organizations, our businesses, and folks in our housing system. So like small landowners, apartment management companies. So from the beginning, it's very clear that we were going to need new ways to stay in touch, and particularly for our organizations and small businesses. I knew, since everything was changing on the daily basis with information we were getting at the city, that they were going to need a clear source of information. So I want to thank the Rogers Park Business Alliance, Sandy Price and her team, for being a partner, particularly on the small business calls, to make sure that we're getting the most up-to-date info. They've been providing technical support to help people with all the various financial aid applications available to our businesses, and also maintaining the website where you can go. So just rpba.org. You can go to their website. They keep all of our small business COVID resources if you're an entrepreneur or small business owner, but also they keep an updated list of all the businesses that are open, where you can go and how you can support businesses and get services and goods that you need during this time of the stay-at-home order. So with those weekly calls, we've been able to connect organizations to PPE, to information, to financial resources. I've learned a lot about the challenges that both the nonprofit and the private sector have been facing, so that I'm more informed when I'm at those tables in city council and with departments, and also working across other levels of government, so that we're able to provide the, yeah, I know, that's Mimi, you guys, in the background. That's Mimi. She's 16 and a half. which we calculated the other day is like 105 in dog years. So she is the elder in the house, you could say. Um, so we've also been able to help to fill in and keeping in community in conversation with organizations when they've had needs that weren't being met. And so, if you have an organization, a group, a business, you're an entrepreneur, if you want to join those calls, email my office. So, just office at 49thward.org. We hold them every week, and we'll make sure that you get connected so that we can get through this together. And then, last but not least, kind of big area of work, of course, has been city council. So, what's been happening with the city? How are the departments working? What does the city's overall response to COVID look like? And so, I'm excited to announce this week that, while I've definitely been reaching out over the last several weeks, talking to the budget director or procurement office, different department heads, taking ideas, collaborating on efforts that they've been doing. As we get government running, we've had a couple of city council meetings now. There have been some new opportunities for me to bring our community voice to overall city decision making. And so the COVID-19 Budgetary and Contractual Response Working Group met for the first time this week. So this is chaired by Alderwoman Dow, who's the chair of the Budget Committee. We voted to give Mayor Lightfoot executive team, specifically the budget director, procurement officer, public health commissioner, and some other department heads, the emergency powers that they were using under the executive order in order to make sure they could quickly respond. But we do want to have city council input and oversight over decisions that are being made around our federal dollars. And so the COVID-19 Budgetary and Contractual Response Working Group is where roughly 10 aldermen from across the ward, hi, Michelle, from across the ward, so not just folks who've been on the budget committee, have been invited so that we can bring ideas to the table, hear directly from the budget director and other departments before decisions are being made. So I'm very excited to be on that committee and look forward to sharing more information with you guys as we meet on a weekly basis. Second, I've also been invited to join the mayor's COVID-19 recovery task force. So this is a regional task force, right? So looking at the city of Chicago and beyond, there's several committees that are working on where are we now? Where do we think we'll be kind of by the end of stay at home or mid-year? And what does recovery look like for the city of Chicago? So I'll be serving on the Change Study Committee. And our first task is to actually set a baseline for what our challenges are now. So challenges around the economy, around housing, around healthcare, everything that makes the city and our region tie together, to be able to make recommendations for the other committees who will be working on actual recovery efforts. And so, again, thrilled to be on this committee, to have an opportunity to bring community voice to this table. I serve on that committee with Alderman Osterman as well. And so our area is well represented. And then last but not least, Alderman Osterman, who's the chair of the Housing and Real Estate Committee, has also started working groups of committee members and some experts and advocacy groups to make sure that we can work on some of our toughest issues around housing. We all know that with people unable to earn money, people being laid off, and all the difficulties that we're facing, that people are unable to pay rent. Some people are unable to pay mortgages. We've got increased risk to people experiencing homelessness. And what was already a system with a lot of gaps in it is under more strain than ever. And so I signed up for the working group on renter relief, and we had our first meeting this Friday as well. Alderman Matt Martin is also on that committee. And so we're getting to work through ordinance that I supported that he introduced into council, as well as some broader ideas. I'll say some of the conversations out of our first meeting this Friday were in trying to get CHA to the table to see what CHA could offer during this time, along with their mission in kind of providing housing in our region. So it's all hands on deck. I just want to make sure you guys know, outside of what's happening in the ward, what kind of things I'm doing for us in the city, and I'll continue to bring you those updates. Other fun things for this week. Um, Many of you saw that Dr. Willie Wilson distributed 1 million masks to aldermen in the city of Chicago. So I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Dr. Wilson. We were able to bring 20,000 masks to residents in our ward. So Ward Superintendent Dan Murphy was instrumental in making this possible because, frankly, I don't have a vehicle big enough to pick up 20,000 masks. And then, so Dan was able to use his vehicle to pick up these crates and then actually did the sorting and made sure that these masks got delivered on Friday to our senior buildings and to several of our nonprofit organizations that are doing food distribution. So he got out just over 10,000 of those masks all on Friday, and we'll be distributing the other 10,000 this week. So if you need a mask, if you are not able to buy one, contact my office, again, office@49thward.org. We'll make sure to put you in touch with the resources so that you can get that. If you need a mask and you don't know where to get one, you can also contact my office. We've got local places like the Chicago Upholstery and Furniture Company that are making them. We've got several people that are making fabric reusable masks as well for free. And then there are several online platforms, even places other than Amazon, that are offering a whole, like, kind of bulk of the disposables and some of the KN95 masks. So they are a lot more available now. And as many of you know, as of May 1st, if you're outside, if you're going into public, and you're not able to social distance, the governor has issued an executive order saying that you need to be wearing a mask. Maureen, yes, the ones we distributed are disposable masks. So the 20,000 masks were kind of like the 3-layer non-medical grade masks. Yes, people will need replacements. So what we were able to do with the distribution this week was for the senior buildings, we were able to coordinate. I called these buildings, talked to the management companies, figured out how many residents were there, and we're able to give enough for 4 per resident in all of our senior buildings in the ward. So something to get them started this weekend. The city is going to be providing me with 5,000 of the fabric or reusable masks. So we thought we were going to be able to pick those up this week as well. They're not quite ready. But as soon as they are, we'll be using the same distribution structure, and we should have enough to give one to every resident in the senior buildings again. We won't be able to distribute them much beyond that, but we will be able to give them to every resident in the senior building so that they have ones that are reusable. So again, you guys know there's something, we have close to 60,000 residents in the ward. So even with those 20,000 disposables and those 5,000 reusables, it's not enough for everyone. So we tried to focus on making sure I got them to folks who are most vulnerable to the COVID-19 disease and who might have the least access to them, specifically because of that. I know that they're not necessarily as readily available to just go out and pick up in stores, even though some of our local grocery stores have been carrying them intermittently. So yeah, thanks for that question, Maureen. So pretty proud of that. Next time you guys see Dan Murphy, from a distance, give him an air high five and a big thank you, because he was a big part of making sure that was possible. Maureen wanted me to remind folks that if you are getting the masks that have the valves on the front that make your exhalation easier, please remember that those masks, while they're helping to protect you, they're not protecting others. So part of having those masks is they're not foolproof like your fabric masks. Even, the N95s or KN95s, while they're like the highest grade, they're not foolproof. You still need to social distance. Clearly, if you're sick or exhibiting symptoms, you need to stay home and seek medical care. But also, the point of wearing the covering over your mouth and nose, I did see some people out today that were just wearing it over their mouth. It needs to cover your mouth and nose, is to prevent you from spreading droplets, potential virus, and respirating basically on other people or other surfaces. And so, if you've got one of the masks with the valve needs to be closed so you can tape it off if you need to, if you're going out in public. So, just to know that that'll work. Maureen said you can skip the tape too. You can wear one of the disposable surgicals over top of the mask with the valves, or a bandana, or something that you've made at home for the extra covering. Thanks, Maureen. So those are big updates for this week. I do want to share just a few other things. So um, our good friend Lake Michigan reared her beautiful head again this week. So, as if one crisis wasn't enough at a time, we still are facing record lake levels with Lake Michigan. And as we saw with the additional rain that we got this week, as well as the high winds and some of the storms, we saw more lakefront damage. So thankfully, at Juneway, Rogers, and Howard Beach, and along the beach end at Loyola, where we had the riprap and kind of extra things to secure, those are holding. So that's the good news. That's working. The emergency stabilization is working well. I went out and drove around with Natalia actually, and we took some video footage and some photos, and the lake was pretty strong. But we did have neighbors who experienced flooding, extreme flooding again, as well as some additional erosion and damage to buildings. And so it's something that we're continuing to work on over the next week at Juneway, Rogers, and Howard. Contractors will be there to start laying down some of the sod on the park area. So, as an FYI, I don't have the exact dates yet. So, as soon as they get those to me, we'll make sure to share those in our next kind of digital communications. And then along the South Shore, where they were also experiencing a lot of the same erosion we were kind of later in the season, that stabilization work on the South Shore part of the city has also begun, and will continue for the next several weeks. So the shoreline continues to be an issue. They still project our lake levels to rise kind of through June. And so we'll be checking back in with Army Corps and with CDOT and sharing more info with residents as we get it. And then two more things just to touch on. So many folks know that yesterday was May Day, which is a day, International Workers' Day, where we have a lot of rallies, a lot of protests and demonstrations in support of workers' rights, and the labor movement. Natalia and I got to participate actually in an SEIU honk brigade, where we got to go out and drive around to several of the healthcare centers, nursing homes in the area, just to honk and show appreciation for all of our nursing home workers. And I want to thank SEIU for organizing that and making sure that we could show that appreciation and try to lift their spirits. Yesterday, there was also a demonstration and a protest organized by several neighborhood groups to try and bring attention and awareness to the Heartland Home Services facilities that we have in the neighborhood. So we have a couple facilities run by Heartland Home Services that house migrant children that are currently being detained by our federal government. And so the facility on Morris, folks, you might have seen this on the news. There were helicopters and a lot of police action as part of the rally that started in Toohey Park. Was a march, and the protest ended with a demonstration action that did involve people climbing onto the roof of the building and dropping a banner with the message. And so police were called. There was property damage, and there were a lot of fireworks and things that were set off. So I spoke to this a little bit earlier this morning. Just want to let folks know. Um, I think that public demonstrations, protests, and rallies are very important parts of democracy. We've got to have that. making sure that people's voices who might be silenced are heard. And a lot of our protests and demonstrations and direct actions are really geared to push issues that maybe sometimes make us uncomfortable or sometimes are being hidden. As someone who spent a lot of years organizing, I've participated in my fair share of direct actions. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure to communicate here that I shared this morning is that in that action, there were a lot of concerns neighbors had around some of the fireworks. I want to clarify there were no children in the facility that was targeted for the action. And also, fireworks can be pretty triggering to a lot of folks, and I know we got some complaints around that. But I want to specifically highlight that we're living through a pandemic with a virus that is transmitted respiratorily. And there were definitely points during that action where folks were very close together, concerns with a lot of the smoke from the fireworks, more easily being able to kind of transmit droplets, virus. And so my ask I'll make again is that if you're, organizing demonstrations, actions, if you're organizing social events, like folks, we're still living under a pretty highly contagious situation, and we need people to take as much public safety action as possible to make sure that whatever you're organizing, whatever you're doing, that the folks participating in your action, the folks participating in your event, are able to socially distance, and that you're doing your best to not endanger the health of others. So, just making that ask again. And then on the health and safety tip, it is May 2nd, and it was an absolutely beautiful and gorgeous day. I started it sitting outside our back door, drinking my coffee and getting some sun. Natalia and I took a little ride around to pick up some grocery supplies today, and I could see a lot of people out on their bikes, people out with the dogs, the kids. I saw several unattended children on bicycles with no masks, and a lot of people going to the lake. So the lakefront is still closed. The lakefront is closed. The parks adjacent to the lakefront are closed. Other parks, not on the lakefront, are open. And if you're checking out like Cook County parks or state parks, check their websites just to follow up and see what their hours are. And if you have questions, reach out to my office. Um, we need to be stronger than ever when it comes to recognizing social distancing and the health risks that we're facing. I can admit in the warm weather today, not having to wear a jacket and having the sun out, it's easy to forget that we're in a pandemic. But we need folks to still mind these guidelines, stay the course, or else we're going to see an even bigger spike of cases and run the risk of undoing a lot of the good work we've done already of flattening the curve. Kimberly's question, is it okay to have a barbecue in my yard? Absolutely. Just mind that you're keeping to folks that already live in your household, right? You shouldn't be having gatherings. Really, this isn't the time to be inviting people over. And so, if you're grilling out, cooking, totally fine. Don't make it an event, right? So you're still wanting to limit your activities to people within your household. If you're engaging with other folks because you're going out to the store, you have to go to work. You should be minding those social distance guidelines and wearing a mask. So that's still the advice, still the thing that we need people to do. And I really appreciate all the folks I did see wearing masks and socially distancing while I was out and about today. So it's going to be difficult. We've got another month of this at least. But in order to make sure that we are, one, honoring the people that we've already lost to this disease, two, keeping ourselves and our families safe, and three, doing our best to make sure that we're not endangering others, like our essential workers in our grocery stores, in our retail stores, in our restaurants, our first responders, and our hospital workers, and our healthcare workers. We need to keep them safe by doing what we're supposed to do. So I want to thank everybody who joined. Thank you guys for being a part of our community. I really am proud of us. We've been doing well. I've appreciated the dialogue, people reaching out to the office, and everyone who's been helping in their own way to make sure that we survive and come out better on the other side of this pandemic. So, if there are no other questions from folks that are watching, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here um, and let you guys get back to your Saturday night. Oh, question from Jennifer. Any activity outside should not be prohibited if you maintain social distance. So, comment from Jennifer. So, right now, you're allowed to take a walk around. There are no prohibitions on what you do. You're supposed to be maintaining social distance. You're supposed to be covering your face with a mask. If you are in a situation where you cannot maintain social distance, I will say, I know that a lot of folks have been popping out to walk the dog or go for a walk because they're solo. I think that's why a lot of folks aren't wearing the masks. But we live in a pretty densely populated neighborhood, and it's nearly impossible on one of these nice days to maintain social distance just while walking down the sidewalk. I don't know if folks have noticed that. So please wear a mask when you're going out, especially if you're going for a casual walk, if you're not sure who you're going to encounter. And the lake shore is closed, and the parks adjacent to the lake are closed. So until that changes, please stay off of the lake shore and please stay out of those parks. So I thank you all for doing your part, for doing what you can, for hanging in there. And you guys have a fantastic evening.
We still